All right. I want to welcome you guys back to the OP Inner Circle for August 2025. Of course, we do these calls to be able to add additional value to our top producers, and this is a forum in an area that we focus on topics that enhance your leadership lid, that raises the lid on your leadership, that really helps you to unpack and explore concepts that are either on my mind or that I'm hearing from the field that agents are experiencing. And this is, to be candid, this is really your call in your environment. So if there are topics, challenges, anything that you go, man, I would love to explore that further, let me know. We will tailor these calls to fit the things that you're really thinking on. So what I have planned for us today is we're going to cover one of Gary's ahas. And of course, we've been working through the 13 ahas that Gary wrote at the end of 2024 that was framing his 2025 thinking. And I will share the screen here so that you guys can see these if you've not seen them before. Go over to the Elmo here. Oops, there we go. Get her in there. Okay, so here's the ahas we've been working with. The last month we covered business is easy, people are hard. So the more you pour into people, the more likely you are to succeed at business. So this was our topic last month. Anyone else have any experience or anything that came from that conversation last month that they were able to put into use? You guys got quiet on me, so maybe not. Okay.
Will you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was just
Sorry.
curious, from last month's business is easy, people are hard. I wondered if you had had any reflections or anything that had really come up over the last period since our last call that you had put into action or thought on. I was just curious to get some reflection on that topic from last month.
Okay.
I have a little bit reflection on that. So Leslie has been meeting with everyone on the team on a weekly basis. I can hear myself talking and it's awful. Thank you. So she's been meeting with everyone on the team on a weekly basis and just creating actual action steps for us to take. So I feel like her pouring into us as her teammates has given the business as a whole a return.
Good job. All right. Nice job, leader. Way to be, Leslie. That's good. Faith, how does that feel for you?
I will give you the exact thing that happened because it was crazy. So we have this investment property in Ohio, and right now I feel like I'm getting raked over the coals because of how much money we are not making from it. My action step was to call the Ohio Metro Housing Authority, see how much I could increase my tenant's rent, and I can increase my tenant's rent $300.
Good
And
job.
that's just because I put something on my calendar from our meeting and did.
Wow, good job. That's awesome. Set your priorities, take action, get results.
And circle calling.
Nice work.
I want to say that we have names for our meetings and each person has a different name for our meeting that I'm having with them. And I didn't make Faith's meeting name exciting enough. So we had to change the name and now it's forward focus with Faith.
Love it. That's awesome. You've named
fun.
your one-on-ones. That's a great tip. I love that. Good job. All right. Good. Anyone else have any ahas from last month's call? Business is easy, people are hard. Okay, with that, then we're going to dive into the next topic. This was Gary's number 11 aha. And it says there's a huge difference between those who build a lifestyle, income, business, and career versus those who build a best as they can do income, business, or career. Okay, so lifestyle business versus best as you can income producing business or career. Okay, that was Gary's aha.
Well, that's because of age.
Yeah, at first that sounds very simple. So on its face, it sounds very simple. And yet, like all of these ahas, there's a lot of depth that we can take this to. So I'm gonna stop the share here. What do you guys hear in that aha initially?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, you bet. There's a huge difference between those who build a lifestyle income business or career versus those who build a best as they can do income, business, or career.
I think of one word just pops up into mind. It's intentionality.
Yep.
That's what I hear, and that is one sounds like going through the motion, just the best you can. Just the way that it's phrased in that sentence doesn't sound like it is the best you can. It's just more like what going through the motions. It sounds like going through the motions to me.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think it's are you building it by design or are you building it by default? And here's a couple of notes I put on this. And you guys feel free to jump in, raise your hand if you have other thoughts. I said this isn't just about the numbers. It's about how much, it's not about how much someone earns, it's about the way they're building their business. It's about the identity beneath the income. I put, our agents building something intentional or are they just surviving the calendar? And I think we've all had moments where we've done both, to be candid. And I think sometimes we vacillate between those. But how much time are we spending in that building something intentional? Are they using proven models or are the agents just doing what they've always done? I think this is one of the best filters for understanding who you're leading and who you're becoming is which quadrant are your people living in? And so when I looked at this, I think this is all about awareness. And it's not about judgment, it's about awareness. And it's about the journey from being a sales agent to being a true business owner and running a business like a business. And so what I did is I kind of mapped out kind of the world according to Brian, how I see this. And we're going to just kind of walk through these a little bit just to see. You guys got that on your screen? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, awesome. So let's walk through this a little bit. On the left-hand side, we've got a lifestyle and income business. On the right side, we've got a best as they can do business. So when I think about this, these were some of the delineations that I really came up with. So first of all, lifestyle income business, they work by default. I'm sorry, design. Looked at the wrong side. So you're in a lifestyle and income business, you're working by design, you're intentionally building the thing with a vision, a someday goal, a 5-year goal, a 3-year goal, you're working backwards. When someone's doing the best they can do business, which by the way, is that a bad thing? No, it's just that becomes more of a default. And so there's an opportunity there to create awareness that goes, hey, and am I building the business the way I want it, or is the business, running me? So work by default. Okay, so is it by design or is it by default? The second one that I put, we time block for freedom. Okay, so we time block for freedom. When you think about it, there are 192 tasks that an agent has to be good at to be able to do their job. And you've got to be good at all of those to be a good agent, unfortunately. And yet there's 5 to 7 that drive 80% of your results. Lead generation, lead conversion, listing appointments, buyer appointments, negotiating contracts, script and dialogue practice, studying the market, and working on your business, not in your business. Those are the 7 that drive 80, probably 90% arguably of your results. And so a lifestyle income business uses time blocks to create freedom because all work expands the time allowed. A best as they can do business reacts to urgency. Okay. This is where we put the fire hat on. We run around all day putting out fires, being the fireman, and we get home at the end of the day and our spouse says, whew, what'd you do? And you go, man, it was a busy day, but I didn't actually produce any results. I just was putting out fires all day. Okay. So the question there is your calendar a weapon or is your calendar a suggestion? The next one, a lifestyle income business is built on models and systems. Okay, so we're implementing models and systems that produce predictable results. And that's one of the great things about Keller Williams. It's a paint by number system to achieve any level of success. The path is the math. And so when we embrace those systems and models, we go where others have gone. And I shared this recently with someone I was talking with. I hiked Knife Edge, which is the terminus of Mount Katahdin, the Appalachian Trail, and it ends at Mount Katahdin. And I've always heard the concept of follow the path others have gone and you'll get where they go. And I don't think it ever really hit me as hard as when we were hiking that hike and you're 6,000 foot up, there's no safety nets, there's nothing, and you're on this very razor thin like section that is a very long section of the mountain, and all there is a blue blaze going over these gigantic boulders. And I would stand there sometimes look at that blue blaze and go, there is no way that is the right pathway, like no way under the sun. But you trusted that it was where someone else went, and you get up over that boulder and you go, first of all, thank God I didn't go either of the other two directions. I'd have fallen off this thing. And secondly, how the heck did someone figure out that that was the way to go first? And that's my frame point for following in others' footsteps and the models and the systems. It takes you places you didn't realize was where you needed to go on your pathway to success in a big business. I think we contrast that by saying that the best as they can do business is built on personality and memory. Okay, personality and memory. So I keep everything in my head. I don't have a trusted system. It's all about the jazz hands of how I do it myself. By the way, if your business is driving your truly perfect life, that's okay. It's fine. That's not a problem. But the question is, are we settling for good when great is possible? And so the question to really think about there is are we embracing those systems and models, or are we letting our personality dictate how we do things every day? Are we building on systems or flying by gut and memory? The next one is kind of interesting. I put a lifestyle business thinks in years. So they think in years. Now, when I was an agent and I was growing my team, I did my life by design form, and I realized that 1,224 units a year was the number that drove every single economic goal that I had in life. And so everything that I was building towards was getting to 1,224 units. And I had mapped that out into the exact number of years it was going to take to get there and the exact number of hires that I had to gross and net in the team, both on the success team, the administrative team, and on the agent team, the sales team, to be able to get there, and had bubble charts of what that organizational chart looked like year by year. Now, I didn't just wake up one day and know to do that. And the real estate gods just didn't huzzah, it showed up. That was a process of thinking through it and leveraging what I learned at Keller Williams to go, okay, now how do I take how we run market centers and leverage that back into our business? So a lifestyle income business thinks in years. The best as they can do business thinks in weeks. You're thinking short term. You don't see that big picture long term. And again, it's okay. This is not judgment. This is just the curiosity assessment going, which am I thinking? And do I need to make any modifications or adjustments to that? The question that I wrote on this is, I lost my question on that one. Sorry. Lifestyle income scales through others. So we scale through others. We're growing through others. And if you think about it, either you can do it or you can spend the time to find somebody else that can do it such that it gets done automatically. And then you can spend the time finding somebody else to keep doing more of it. And so there's a point at which we always have to lead generate, and we need to be lead generating for buyers and sellers. We have to build that lead generation infrastructure, but to build a big business, we have to be able to attract the talent that can handle all those leads. And then pretty soon you move from lead generating for buyers and sellers to lead generating for agents that are showing specialists or buyers agents or lead listing specialists over time. The other side of the equation is that they stay in control. Best as you can do, agents stay in control. Now, staying in control can sound like a good thing, like, hey, I want to stay in control. I don't want to be out of control. But what I mean by that is that they feel the need to touch it all, to be involved in it all, to do it all. And then what happens is they become the bottleneck of the organization. So that's the other side of the best as you can do business. So are you scaling through others, or are you white knuckling it solo because it feels safer? The next one, lifestyle income agents, they embrace accountability. They lean into accountability. They have coaches, they have mentors, they have people that are holding them accountable to their goals, which again, we talk about this in Quantum Leap. That doesn't mean that someone's standing over you, whipping you to get you to do what you want. It's being able to say, hey, what's real about your situation? Where are you? Are you on track? Or are you off track? And if we're off track, just what do we need to do differently to get on track? Sometimes it's a tiny, tiny, tiny little thing. And that's why we always ask the focusing question when it comes to accountability is what's the one thing that's not being done that if it were would make all the difference? And that focusing question can be very powerful. A best as they can do business building agent avoids accountability. Okay, so they avoid accountability. They go, no, that's for someone else. I don't want that accountability. That feels awkward. The question that I wrote is accountability welcomed or is it avoided? And by the way, do we all avoid accountability sometimes? Like, let's not tell a fib. Yes, we all do that. Sometimes I wake up in the morning, I don't want to step on the scale because I know that Heather cooked whatever really good meals last night and I don't want to see the results of it. By the way, that was last night. And well, it's most nights in my household. She's a great cook. But sometimes we avoid accountability. But the reality is we just have to lean into it. No, hey, when do I need to make sure I'm being accountable for something? Lifestyle agents invest in the future. So what I mean by that is that lifestyle income, their agents, they're always learning, they're always growing, they're developing, they're you because you're on this call, because you want to take something to the next level. They're investing in the future versus the best as they can do business spends for the present. So what I mean by that is you can invest in a car, which is really not an investment, but you can buy a car, or you can take that same amount of money and you can go invest in a really high quality EA that will operate your 36 touch and take your business to a whole nother level such that you could go buy 5 cars and not even have it matter. But again, how are we thinking about that and how are we holding every dollar accountable for a rate of return? This is the difference. The question that I wrote is, are you building a future or are you buying lifestyle to look successful now? We got two more. Lifestyle income business builds wealth and autonomy. They're going to build wealth and autonomy. And the opposite of that is builds lifestyle. Builds lifestyle with GCI. So are we investing our dollars back in our future by buying real estate, by investing in people, by investing in our education, or are we investing in our lifestyle? So the funny part is we call this a lifestyle income business, and yet on the other side of the equation is someone building a lifestyle versus building wealth and autonomy. The question that I wrote on this is, are you building for your future? Yeah. Or are you buying lifestyle to look successful now? I covered that one. The last one is the key, and this really sums this all up. It's your identity. Lifestyle income business, identify as a business owner. They understand that everyone with a real estate license is actually running a business and is actually operating a business that has the potential to earn hundreds, if not $1 million, hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million a year. The best as they can do agent businesses, their identity is agents with hustle. Now, there is nothing wrong with hustle, and the world could probably use a little more hustle. However, that identity of, I'm just going to put everything on my back, I'm going to carry it with me, and I'm going to do it all. That means we become the bottleneck. And by the way, when I say that, I resemble that at times. And one of the challenges of being highly talented people, and everyone on this call is highly talented, is that we have a wide range of what we can do. And one of the great awareness questions that my wife always asks me is, she's like, I know you can do that, but should you do that? Like, is that the highest and best use of your time? And boy, it's a humdinger sometimes, because it means sometimes things don't get done as fast, but the trade-off is I'm focused on the right things at the right times. So those are the differences between a lifestyle income business building agent, or a best as you can do income building agent. I want to hear, give me a couple of ahas. What do you hear in that? What do you see? What stood out? I got another 30 minutes. I'm good.
I really think what stands out is now I can kind of look at myself and see where I am and where I need to be. Because I'm one that's, you got to do it yourself if you want it done right. And that's where I got to kind of cut myself off here and somewhat delegate. Just to be able to get ahead instead of bottlenecking myself up and doing everything myself.
Yep. And Steve, that is the hardest lesson for us to learn. And like, no joke, that is the hardest lesson. I struggle with it every day because I can do it, but should I?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that's where I am.
Yeah. Well, and I think the important part is awareness is the start of all change. Okay, good. Love to hear two more ahas. What'd you hear? What stood out?
I have one.
Faith got you beat first there,
What?
Jillian.
Julian can go first.
Okay, Jillian, you got the floor.
Okay, I normally would say ladies first, but it's okay. I'll go. So for me, it's the I got out of that, like, where I think I'm saving time by doing something myself. I'm really not, because I'm not doing the other things that really should be, like, I should be doing right to scale my business. Because at the end of the day, at every given time, that's what we should be focusing on, whether it's hiring an admin or somebody to do something. But then where my personality also, I agree with the gentleman that went before me. It's like, well, I don't want to waste time letting something go wrong, which is why when we were just in that meeting earlier today, I'm like, well, are we able to are you guys saying like to let people make the mistakes? Because to me, the mistakes happen. It's not really being upset with the people, but it's just like, well, I could save the time by just doing this myself versus just, okay, going through trial and error. Because I mean, we're all focused on building a business. So it's like, okay, well, do we focus on training people? And for me today, I think I gotta training people is also building a business. So that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, good. 100%. You're completely right. And you're right. Jillian and I were in a meeting earlier where I shared that in my team leader days, I had a quote that was written on my board. I had two quotes, and one of those said, every time I say I've got this, I deprive my people of the opportunity to grow. Because it was a reminder, and Toy shaking her head. It's a reminder, just like with your kids, like if you coddle them and you do everything for them, they don't actually learn. And so you got to give them the space to learn and fail. And the weird part about this, and I talk about this in Quantum Leap, is that when you're watching a toddler start to walk, they're like, falling over and they're crazy, and you're going, go, you got this, and they're not perfect at it. They're like, they look awkward, they fall, they hit their head, they're on their butt, they're back up, and yet we're cheering them on. And at some point we cross the threshold over cheering people on like that, even when it looks ugly and weird and they're not getting it right and they're learning, to the point where we think either we have to be perfect or they have to be perfect, and we stop cheering on that progress. And so we have to think about, I don't mean this in the wrong way, but we have to think about the people that we lead as those toddlers. They're learning to walk in certain areas. And so we've got to just be cheering them on. We've got to be their biggest supporter. And sometimes that's hard because we're further along than they are. And the greatest gift we give them is bringing them up to where we are and continuing our growth forward so that we can take them further, raise their lid. So thank you for that. One more. Anyone else?
I can share mine now. You had asked us at the beginning of the class, what does that aha make you think about, or what's the first thing that comes to mind? And my first thing that came to mind was think bigger, because there's a lifestyle business and there's the best you can do business. But when you think bigger, your goals are bigger. So going through this, you're building on models and systems, you're thinking in years in the lifestyle income business, and you're scaling through others. So I think that was my aha.
Yeah, that's great. Those all tie together, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Okay, good. So here's where I'm going to take this. I want to take this over and talk about the fact that we have to be thinking this way, and we also have to be thinking this way, and the people that we bring into our world also have to be thinking this way. Now, I've got some bonus content that I'm going to send out to you guys at the end of this call. I've written up a 12-question assessment that you can rank yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 on in each of these areas. And there's a little bit of prompting on this, and I've got some other content I want to make sure I get in, so I'm going to let you guys do this exercise after the call. But with this, this is an audit your business identity check, and it will let you look at where you rank yourself in these key areas, and then your lowest 2 scores, you're going to add it up. It's going to give you some options as to, hey, if this is your score, this is where you would spend some time and some energy. This is where you go focus on. And it's going to break it down into 4 different quadrants. And with that, it's also going to recommend that you take your 2 lowest and set an objective this month to go focus on bringing those 2 up. And then the next month, you can go focus on the next 2 and bring those up. So I will send that out to you. But the reason I think this matters is this all ties into career visioning, and it ties into who we get into business with. So I'm gonna put this up on the screen for you here. Many of you guys have seen this graph. Well, actually, I'm going to start with this. So when we do career visioning, I call career visioning It's like digging around in someone's brain to really understand what makes them tick. How do they think? What's the world according to them? And so in career visioning, we are looking at a combination of behaviors, traits, and modifiers. And when you really understand, I think one of the misnomers is that most people, when they, let me get this back up, there we go. Most people, when they are going through career visioning, they really think that verifying the KPA, well, first of all, they think that verifying the KPA is like that's career visioning. And I want you to understand that's one of 6 steps with 2 additional steps that happen after you go through those 6. So it's one piece of the puzzle. And so we get these KPAs. This happens to be mine for OP. And it measures each area based on the ranking of what is particularly important. So these are all the high impact traits, behaviors, and modifiers. And then these are the little bit lower impact traits, behaviors, and modifiers. And it shows where we rank. So what I want to do is I want to give you a tool to work with this. And this is something really good to do with yourself. It's really good also to do with someone else you know. So if it's a spouse or someone in your world, it's fun to be able to take the assessment, look at the results, and think about it. And the example that I saw that happened with this is the instructor of one of my classes happened to have her husband in the audience one day. And so she said, honey, could you come up here? And she put her KPA up on the board, but she had him facing the audience, so he could not see it. And she said, honey, I just want you to tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, which really is 1/2 to like 10, how would you rank me on assertiveness? And he kind of laughs and he goes, I'm going to give you like a 10. And she's like, okay, so you can't really be a 10, but I can be a 9.5. Okay, great. And she's like, why? And he goes, well, because you do this, this, and this. And as he walked through every one of these, he literally nailed it to within about 1 to 1/2 of a point of being able to say, this is how this individual shows up. The point of doing this exercise is when you've lived with someone long enough, they know your behavior, they know your traits, they know how you react to things. And when we're hiring, we don't have the privilege of being able to go spend a year living with them. Like that would be awkward. So we have to find shortcuts to find out who are they and how does their behavior and their thinking and their modifiers, how does that affect how they're going to show up in the role? And so, of course, the KPA always shows us where are we a match, which are the green items. Where are we a mismatch? Are we a little too high? Are we a little too low? Those that know me know I'm pretty assertive and I'm also very intense, because you guys know me on this call. Logical problem solving, responsiveness, these are all the things that are relevant to my role, okay? But you can look at this and kind of go, okay, check, check, and check. But how does this person really show up in the daily world? And I'm gonna show you. This is the shortcut and the way that we do this. I'm gonna show Rebecca Adams here because she gave me permission to do this. This is the process that you go through with a KPA. And I'm gonna just go zoom in without giving you guys a headache there. There we go. So what we do is we start to go through, the first thing is, and I'm going to tell you what these are next, but we go through and I mark each one. Is this a trait? Is it a behavior, or is it a modifier? Traits, behavioral traits describe how a person acts. And your traits are malleable. You can modify your traits through EQ, through perseverance, through just grit. But in moments of stress, we naturally revert back to our authentic self. And so at stress points, even if you've modified it, this is who you're going to be. This is how you're going to show up. And so it's important to know that what we do when we start off with this, we label the traits, we label the behaviors, and we label the modifiers. The traits we talked about, the behaviors are, the modifiers are, they're unique in that they don't act independently on a person's personality. They interact with behavioral traits. So they modify, they add color and dimension to how people show up. They add fire or they cool down behavior. And then you have, I'm sorry, T is thinking, behavior traits and thinking. So these are thinking. This is how you think. And these are generally, these are how people process ideas, information, and these are very fixed. You don't typically change your thinking traits. And so the first thing that we do is we go through and actually label each one. So we know, is this a modifier? Is this changing another behavior? How does it relate? Then the second thing that we do is we go through and we draw a line at 3.5, and then we draw a line at 6.5. Now, the reason that we do this is this gives you a low range, a middle range, and a high range. Anything that shows up in the low range or the high range, this is how your people are. These are going to be very fixed. They're not going to flex a lot. Like, they're going to be in that, they're going to be the way that it says they're going to be. When they fall in the middle, you'll find that they can flex up or they can flex down. So someone can go a little bit higher and someone can go a little bit lower. Now, my logical problem solving, because I am a very spatial thinker, I think in pictures, I think in drawings. We have a new agent services that we're onboarding today, and as I'm explaining everything to her, I drew like 50 doodles in my notebook. It's how I think. So my spatial is very high, but my logical is in the middle because I tend to gravitate towards spatial. But we can flex up and down. So the first thing that we do is we draw these lines and we look at where is someone pretty well fixed and where do they flex at. The second thing that I do is I go through and I really look at each one of these item by item. And this is what I want to just kind of break down for you on this. And I will send this out to you so that you can have these to work with. When we look at behavior, and it's important to remember behavior is neither good nor bad. So the first 4, assertiveness, sociability, responsiveness, and structure, these are purely behavioral traits. And if we look at the low end, and I'm just going to I'm going to cheat this up a little bit. Let me adjust this for a little bit here. I'm going to cheat this up so that you can kind of see how this works. So at the low end of assertiveness, you've got someone that's a little bit more reserved. They're going to achieve goals through cooperation and good planning. They're going to be a little bit more conservative in action. They're going to be a little slower to take action. When faced with obstacles, they tend to stop and reassess before moving forward again, but they're typically receptive to the actions of others. On the high end, however, of assertiveness, and as it relates to assertiveness, that is going to be right here. That is off my screen. That's right here for a team leader. Assertiveness is always high for a team leader. The high end, they're going to be determined, persistent, direct. They're going to be willing to move forward to take action and solve problems. They may actually be confrontational and stubborn. They may be assertive, but they're an action taker. Highly assertive people are going to be action takers, and highly assertive people make really good real estate agents because they go, point me to the mountain and I'm going to go charge it. So this is the next step in the process. What we do then is we take a look at where does someone rank? So in this case, as it relates to assertiveness, this is a behavior. So I noted that her natural behavior is going to be that she's determined, that she's going to take action, and maybe stubborn at times. So I'm making notes for that. Now, part of the reason that I do this process, and I'll show you this, is I actually keep, let me stop my share for one moment. I actually keep a talent KPA binder on every leader in my organization so that I carry with me their career visioning. I carry with them this page. I carry with me their 5-year motivational interview that we do so that we have who they are. We've got a jacket on them of this is who this person is. When we have challenges, when we have obstacles, when we have friction, I'm opening that back up to first look at it to say, is this a natural behavioral thing that we're dealing with, or is there something else that is at play? So this is where this all comes together. And so when we look at sociability, I'm going to pull this off. Sociability. Someone at the low end is going to be very task oriented versus the high end is going to be very people oriented. Low end is going to be introspective and enjoys working with things and ideas. They must work at interacting with others, and they may find long periods of social interaction stressful. At the higher end, we've got people that are people oriented. They're driven to interact with others. They prefer not to work alone for extended periods. They tend to have a wide circle of contacts and acquaintances. So they like other people and they like to communicate with other people. If you take somebody that's high sociability and put them into an MCA role, they will walk around the market center and talk to all the agents and never actually get the financials done. It's how it happens. And if you get this person, they may not ever want to talk to the agents and have the best financials you've ever seen, which, by the way, both of those are challenges. So who are they and how are they showing up and who are they being in your world to build your business the way you need your business built? The next area is around responsiveness. Responsiveness has to do with emotional reaction. On the low end is calm. On the high end is impatient, and impatience is not a bad thing. Someone with calm energy, the low end is going to be steady, calm, patient. They're going to work at a slower, composed pace. They're going to accommodate the reaction time, and they tend to internalize their feelings or opinions. A low responsive person, usually they won't say anything until they have an absolute outburst, and you'll go, where did that come from? The other end is a highly responsive person that is fast-paced, excitable, a little bit impatient. They prefer an exciting, hectic, fast-paced work environment. They like a lot of things happening at once, and they're going to be very expressive. They're going to express themselves outwardly. So rather than holding in their feelings when responding to external events, they'll let you know. They'll be very, very responsive to it. Now, one of the points of order to always keep in mind is no one behavior or trait or modifier like operates on its own. These all are like a concert playing together. So if you get someone that is a low logical problem solver that is highly responsive, they may make really bad decisions really fast and drive something off the cliff before you even realize it's happening. So we have to look at these and go, how do these work together? How do these work together? The last behavioral trait is structure. Okay. At the low end, we have flexible. So greater tolerance for ambiguity versus the high end who likes order and prefers order and certainty. At the low end, they're going to be a little bit more concerned with outcomes than following rules. They'll be a rule breaker. And they're probably not going to follow established procedures real well. At the high end, they're going to prefer order and certainty. They're going to follow the rules very clearly and establish procedures. And they're uncomfortable with uncertainty or ambiguity. So someone that's high structure, you have to say, here's what I want done, and here's the steps, and here's the things, and here's the thing, and they're still going to have maybe 5 more questions to ask versus the lower structures like, got it. Give me 5 minutes, I'll run and do that. Now, different roles call for different hats. So there's times where that's a good thing, and there's a time where that's a challenge. So those are your first 4 behavioral traits. Then we have the modifiers. Your modifiers are adaptability, intensity, and optimism. And these are going to be 5, 6, and 7 on our chart here. Let me see if I can scoot that up for you there just a moment. There we go, 5, 6, and 7. Adaptability is the desire to accommodate others. And when we look at that, at the low end is independent and at the high end is accommodating. Let me just remove this from back behind there. There we go. That's a little easier to read. Independent minded. At the low end is going to be independent minded. They're going to be less concerned about the impact of their behavior on others. They do not readily take other people's thoughts and feelings into account when making a decision. Okay, they're going to just do it. They're going to rip the Band-Aid off and we'll deal with the aftermath later. Highly adaptable people are going to be accommodating. They're going to be very concerned about other people's thoughts and feelings when deciding what to do or say. They're going to be diplomatic, presidential, maybe tactful, and they want to be on positive terms with almost all people. Okay. That may be good if you have an EA that is interacting with your clients. That may not be good if you've got somebody that's having to do negotiations that, you know, need to be, I'm going to call it win-lose, but we don't like win-lose negotiations. But when dealing with confrontation, they may not be as comfortable with that. Intensity. Intensity is the degree of reaction, and it ranges all the way from cool to hot. The cool end reacts less strongly when frustrated. They seek a more reasoned or logical approach to the resolution. And at the hot end, when frustrated, they respond with a high degree of emotional vigor. Whether or not this frustration or vigor is displayed outwardly depends on a person's level of responsiveness. So I said that earlier. They may be, I had a showing specialist who she was high intensity, low responsiveness. And when you were talking to her, you could just see her hand was shaking. She was incredibly good at what she did, but she just had that nervous energy. And you'd be like, hey, are you okay? And she, yeah, I'm fine. Why? And, you know, that was just the mixture of how her behavior and her traits were showing up. The last one is optimism, the degree of positive thinking. So are they a black hatter or are they a blue sky thinker? At the low end, you've got skeptical, actively looking for potential problems and worrying about what can go wrong. At the high end, you've got feeling cheerful and upbeat most of the time and may ignore negative information. So, like it or not, black hat thinkers can be positive because they point out the challenges, they see the blind spots, they are the ones that will see the challenges that we may not think about. The modifiers add fire or cool down the behavior. So these down here, these last three, they attach to and they modify one of the behaviors up above. So those are the first two. The last item that we have is how someone thinks. How someone thinks. And I am not finding my piece of paper with that on it, so I may have to work from this. I don't. Okay. Next one is how someone thinks. Let me just stop that share. Actually, here, tell you what, I'm going to let you work from my workbook here so you get to see my notes. So the thinking traits are logical problem solving, rapid fire problem solving, spatial visualization, and vocabulary. So at the high end of logical problem solving, somebody with low logical problem solving, they may prefer a rapid fire approach. They'll use a tried and tested approach when applicable. So they're going to be the ones that go, okay, we're going to start at A, then we're going to go to B, then C, and they're going to work through that just one step at a time. Now, if you're a high logical problem solver, these people will drive you crazy. I'm not lying, because you're like, hey, I've already arrived at the conclusion. We need to like speed this bus up. And yet this is their natural behavior. So you really have to look at who are you and who do you work well with? And then who do you need in each role for that role to succeed? And of course, Keller Williams gives us the job fit profile. So you get some sense of what is that behavioral match. At the high end, a high logical problem solver is going to use a methodical, process-oriented approach to solving problems. They're strategic thinkers, and they're going to organize their ideas. They're going to easily communicate solutions, and they can explain A, B, C, D, but they're just really going to go straight to Z. They're like, hey, I've got the answer. This is where we need to go. This is why. And so knowing where someone falls on this is really important. For me, I have found my most challenging people that I've interacted with are people that have low or medium logical problem solving, because your high logical problem solvers, they tend to have a little bit higher EQ and sometimes may even have higher IQ. Now, not always, but I found that that's a good mix. The next one, the next thinking assessment, and again, these are pretty well fixed. These don't change, is rapid problem solving or rapid fire problem solving. It's the preference to deal quickly with many problems one after another. Somebody that's a little bit at the lower end of the range is going to be is going to want a more logical approach. They're going to apply systems and models. They're going to want a step-by-step process. They want to rip off and duplicate something from someone else. On the high end, the preference is going to be they just kind of know the answers. They're not necessarily going to know how to explain them. They're going to be good with quick seat of the pants problem solving situations. And again, if you get somebody that's high rapid problem solving, but low logical, that's a dangerous place also, because you're going to get somebody that's going to make fast decisions, but they haven't thought them through well. Okay. The next one is spatial visualization. Spatial visualization is the natural ability to hold, manipulate, and think about 3 dimensions in your mind. So this is the part of the KPA where you did the Tetris thing. Spatial visualization, high spatial visualization people, they think in pictures, they think in systems, they look up, you'll a lot of times see them look up and like kind of process something. They can easily picture 3-dimensional objects in space in their mind. They'll try out spatial solutions to problems mentally without having to go through the intense labor of actually constructing something. Versus the lower end, a non-spatial thinker is going to, rather than picturing 3 dimensions in their mind, they'll use a more labor-intensive strategy when working on spatial problems. And I tell the example of, I had someone that was a low spatial thinker, and again, behavior is not neither good nor bad, but they would be looking at a screen and there'd be a giant blue button flashing, and the instructions would say push the blue button, and quite literally they would look at the screen and go, where's the blue button? I don't see it. And I'm like, it's right there, but I could see it because I'm spatial and they couldn't. So it's just, that's a natural, that's a thinking trait. The last one is vocabulary. Vocabulary is a measure of the number and precision of the concepts a person uses in understanding and learning from experience. So vocabulary isn't just words and numbers. It's almost has to do with the worldliness of someone's view. And at the low end, you have somebody that may be a little bit more deliberate in understanding and processing new ideas. They may leverage more visual or kinesthetic models of thought. And at the high end, they're going to be a little more quick to pick up and understand new ideas, new concepts, and be able to leverage them in dealing with new experiences. And so really what that boils down to is the more experience you have in life, the more tools that you have to work with. Now, again, these are how people process ideas and problems. And this just goes back to really kind of the brain chemistry and how the brain works. So when you're working through your KPAs, if you've not looked at your own KPA, go back and look at it. I encourage you, go back and actually do this exercise with your staff. In other words, so Leslie, I'm looking at you on the screen. With each one of your people, go back and do this exercise. And then it's fascinating because when you look at this, you're gonna go, oh, that's why they do that, because their natural tendency is they like rules and order. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. That's why I can't just give them this random task and expect it to get done. It's really fascinating to do that. And again, I think being able to look back at these from time to time and assess where do we as the leader need to adapt ourselves to really meet that person where they are, and then where do we need to help move them forward so that they can better meet us where they are. But recognizing that behavior is neither bad nor good, it just is. It's just how we interact. And I think one of the examples that I saw of this was Mark Willis many years ago. We were in a room of about 200 people at Recharge, and he told each agent to make a list, or each person in the room to make a list of 10 words that related to the word house and real estate. And his point on this exercise was that there are as many perspectives in the world as there are people. We were at tables of 10 each, and he had us go through and rate, after we wrote our list, like who had the same word. And it was crazy. Out of 200 people, there was one table that had one word in common. No, I'm sorry. There were 2 tables that had 2 words in common, and 2 tables that had 1 word in common, and 1 table that had 2 words in common. And otherwise, every single person in the room, when they heard the word real estate or house, had a different perception because of all their behaviors, traits, and modifiers. They were approaching the project from a completely different perspective. So the message on that is our perspective is not their paradigm is not ours. It belongs to each one of us. And using these tools, we can figure out how do we work more effectively together and build the lifestyle and income business, not just the best as we can be business. So I will send you out the some notes on this call, and I will include that assessment for you guys to be able to look through. I'd love to just hear a couple of ahas. What did you take from this? What'd you hear? What was impactful? Was this helpful?
So we can't both talk at the same time.
It's okay,
So-
you got it.
I think the biggest thing for me was when you were going through the spatial awareness part of that KPA there, and thinking about how I would put something together and other people that I know or other people on my team, how they would approach that and whether they need the instructions or not, or if they can just go, oh, this is how this is going to go together. And I'm realizing different people in my entire life that had that different personality type than I do as far as that particular facet of it goes.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And I think one of the really fascinating concepts on that is when you say, can't you see what I'm saying? Because when you say, can't you see what I'm saying, you are by definition a visual thinker trying to translate it into words. And the example that I saw with this, we were in a room of about 200 people and the instructor tapped out this song on the table. And she said, can't you see what I'm saying? And when she tapped it out, she could hear the words in her mind, but we were seeing the visuals. And she said, what's the song? And of 200 people, not one person got it right, with one exception. The song was Mary Had a Little Lamb, but someone said it was London Bridges Falling Down, which happens to be the same tune. And so the can't you see what I'm saying? That's the reminder that, you know, the song's in our head, and the key is to be able to get it out in a way that they can understand it. And Leslie's laughing, but it's true. Like, it's true. Good. One more aha and we'll get you out of here. Aha, something that stood out, something that you can use in your business or in your thinking.
I think and this might be like a repetition thing, right? It's the way that you're thinking or viewing something, somebody else looking at it, and it's all based on how the personality type and the way that you're structured. That it's completely different. And I think it's as somebody in business, it's important that we, you know, I guess kill that side of us, because you know, when people's action, and I'm dealing with this right now, just to be honest, of people just feeling the lack of gratitude for the things that we do and going above and beyond what's normal, and people just aren't receiving it right. And I mean, we hear this all the time, right? It's like, okay, well, everybody's thinking it's different. Don't take these things like personal, or try not to look at it more from a standpoint of these people are thinking differently. So they're not, most people don't intentionally try to do things that are offensive to you. It's just their thinking is different. And then it's just I don't know what needs to happen really for that to stick. But when you're in the heat of a moment, I mean, humans are just kind of emotional. It's just making that stick on, hey, they're probably looking at it a little bit different from what I'm looking at. Maybe find out or start probing more questions to figure out like what's really happening.
Yeah, you're right. That was the point of my commentary earlier, is that there's 7 billion different ways to look at it because there's 7 billion humans on this earth. And I think the greatest challenge is being a leader and being in the service industry even is being able to step out of our own paradigm and perspective and stay in curiosity and step into theirs and go, well, let's just see how do they see it from their perspective. Doesn't mean we have to agree with it, but they have a perspective. And if we can stop and understand that perspective, we can get a lot further with people. So good. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you being on today. As always, this is some of my loyal people. Again, if there's a concept in the future you want covered on this, let me know. And I will send this out to you this afternoon. And I encourage you to take the assessment and think about where do we need to make tiny changes that move you towards a lifestyle and income business and not just a best you can do business. All right. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, awesome.
Thanks, guys.